You know, a lot of people ask this question about eschatology. Why should we care? And they say, I'm not pre-trib, I'm not mid-trib, I'm not post-trib. I'm just pan-trib. Everything's going to pan out in the end. Well, good luck with that one. I'm about preparing you. I'm about saying, hey, look, if Jesus is going to warn us, if Paul's going to warn us, then I need to warn us. I need to warn myself. And so I want to just go quickly through this list, and then I'm going to tell you my story. Why should we care? Because 2 of the 7 principles of Christ in Hebrews deals with the resurrection of the dead in Christ and eternal judgment. That's 2 out of 7 first principles of Christ. Nearly half the books of the Bible addresses the events that will occur in the last days. That's pretty significant. That's another reason why we should care, because that much has been given to this subject. Jesus tells us to watch and be on guard. The last teaching Jesus gave before the Last Supper and his arrest was about the last days and his second coming. So Matthew 24, where he's talk about all the signs, and he even inserts in there what it's going to look like in the generation from then, 70 AD, when the Jerusalem is surrounded by an army, which was 70 AD, Prince Titus, that came from Rome and destroyed Jerusalem. He inserted that in there. However, Matthew 25, we have the parable of the 10 virgins, and then we have the parable of the talents. The last 2 parables of Jesus before he went to the Garden of Gethsemane and before he was arrested was given about the end times. And when we read about the sheep and the goats, that was also about the end times. Matthew 26. A number of Jesus' parables addresses his second coming, particularly the last 2 parables he taught his disciples. I might mention, too, the last recorded words of Peter, the Apostle Peter, was all about the second coming. All about the second coming. What we believe about the last days will affect how we approach life and our walk with Christ in light of the judgment we'll receive for our deeds when he returns. Now, I'm going to put a little fire under you tomorrow when I show you what life's going to be like when Jesus returns. And what we do in this life now with our Christian walk will determine our position there. Not a position judicially of being saved. We are saved, yes. But we're not going to be floating around on a cloud with harps and halos. This is only a precursor to what the life will be like in our heavenly bodies. Not heavenly bodies, our physical bodies that are immortal. Just throwing a little tidbit out there. Now, what we know and understand about the last days can prepare us to be discerning and effective witnesses in that time. So if you have some measure of a comprehension of what the book of Revelation is laying out, then you're going to know what's coming down the pike if you happen to be alive at that time. What we know and understand about the last days can prepare us to be able to discern the lies and deceit of the Antichrist. Now, in 1 John chapter 4, John says this, that the spirit of Antichrist is already in the world. The spirit of Antichrist is the antithesis of Christ, meaning that anti means in place of Christ. The world has always offered something in place of God. The world has always offered, since Christ came on the scene, something in place of Christ. Thus, anti-Christ, in place of, the antithesis of. And so the spirit of the age is always anti-Christo. But in the last days, he will be a person, he will embody the spirit of Antichrist, and he will be such a deceiver that even the elect will follow him. Some, not all.
Not all.
I want to make sure. Yes, John, not all. Now, what we know and understand about the last days can determine which category of Christians we'll be part of in those days. Now, categorization, no way. Yes, way. The 5 foolish virgins category, Matthew chapter 25, 1 through 10. These virgins the 10 virgins are all Christians. They're all saved, particularly in the reference to that. Like Paul says to the Corinthian church, I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy because I have presented you to Christ as, pure virgins, as chaste virgins. And he was concerned that someone would come along and take them off the path, lead them astray, deceive them. It's the 5 foolish virgins category, which we'll talk about later. Or the 5 wise virgins category. I want to be in the wise virgin category. Then there's the saints who are deceived by the Antichrist, and that will happen. That's what we read about earlier, that the lawless one is going to come, and he will not come, or Christ will not come, until there is a falling away first, a great falling away, an apostasy, as it were. And this is in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. He said, the coming of the lawless one, the coming Christ, will not occur until the great apostasy and the lawless one, which is the Antichrist, is revealed. So that means there will be saints who are deceived by the Antichrist, and there will be saints on the opposite spectrum who are martyred for their faith by not being deceived by him or following him at all. They'll be martyred. There will be saints who become apostates. That means they will fall away. They will, in the last days, many will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. Now, what that flies in the face of is Calvinism. Calvinism says once saved, always saved. Whereas I've been reading some scriptures that happen to give an indication that you can forfeit your salvation. And that is what's going to happen to many saints in the last days that are around in the time of the Antichrist.